Sintu, are you sharing the presentation or should I upload it?
I'll share it. But before we start, should we start off with introductions? Because I mentioned that we have some new people here. Can everyone see the presentation?
Yes.
Yeah.
What about everyone? Can you write in the chat whether you can see it or you have any problem, and we'll try to deal with it.
Yeah.
Yep.
We go ahead.
Yeah, if you could just put in the chat, just let us know that you can see the presentation. That would be great. Cool. All right, awesome.
Okay, brilliant. So, hi everyone. For those who missed the start of the introductions, my name is Sindhu. I'm a trainee children's wellbeing practitioner and I work in the Grenfell Health and Wellbeing Service.
My name is Kofi. So I also work in the Grenfell Health and Wellbeing Service alongside Sintu, also as a children's wellbeing practitioner. And just in brief, our roles basically involve working with children and young people who may be presenting with some low mood and anxiety on like a mild to moderate level. And we basically just help them with some self-guided interventions to sort of help them teach and give them strategies to sort of overcome these difficulties in the long run.
And today we've been asked by Ikram to come here and speak a bit about the new normal. And I'm sure many of you have heard the new word sort of going around, new normal, and there's a whole new sort of buzz around this sort of terminology and going back to school. So we thought now would be a good time to speak about some of the worries that children might be experiencing and parents about returning to school and experiencing this new change in life and how we might be able to manage some of these worries. And like Ikram said before, if there's anything that you would like us to repeat or don't understand or would like translated, if you just post in the group, and I'm sure Ikram will get back to you in that. So we'll start off, first of all, speaking a little bit about the government guidelines. So what the government are currently saying about the school and returning to school. Then we'll speak a bit about how we can manage any sort of worries that your child might be experiencing, talking a bit about what causes worry and how you'll be able to recognize this in your child. And also how you can manage this using techniques such as grounding and deep breathing exercises, as well as using graded dysplasia, which is the use of planning to really support your child to return to school.
Cool. So yeah, just a bit on the government guidelines. Before we go through this, we just want to make everyone aware that the information that we're giving to you now is based on what the government have said currently. As we know, they're constantly changing the information they're giving out, and understandably that can make it quite annoying and perhaps maybe things aren't so clear. But just bear in mind that this, as we're saying, it could change because it's based on what they've currently said. So yeah, just to bear that in mind. But as most of you know, well, for some of you, if you have kids, maybe they've already started school already. Some of your kids might be starting next week, but yeah, the plan from the government in regards to going back to school is that most kids will go back this month in September for the autumn term. And yeah, so basically for the vast majority of children, they've been asked to return to school because of what the government is saying about how the benefits of being back in school can far outweigh the risk of COVID, of them being in danger from catching COVID. So the government have been very adamant from the beginning. Probably one of the things they've been really adamant on is that the likelihood of children getting coronavirus or even having some really detrimental consequences from it, like maybe dying from it, are extremely low. So that's one thing that perhaps maybe if there's a little bit of worry for sending your child back to school, then that's one thing that they've really gone out their way to reassure that, you know, the evidence to suggest that is extremely low. Of course, there's no real risk-free option when it comes to this, but just know that from what they've said, like if they're saying that it's pretty low, then at least that is some positive news and some hope to consider going forward. And as it says, like, because now that schools are basically going to be they've left the power of schools to basically take their own approach as to how best to safely manage like going back to school and to make sure that safety and everything is maintained. So each school is likely to have their own sort of safety protocols in place to help with like the return to school. So for example, there's been suggestions that classes may reduce in size, so around maybe the 15 mark. So you won't really have classes of more than 15 pupils at a time. And that some children, as like some pupils are in school, then maybe the other half of the class will be at home. So they'll basically take it in turns as to who comes in one week, and then the following week that those set of pupils will be at home, and then the other set of pupils will be into school. So again, this is just like following with the new normal, making sure that every protocol and safety measure is taken and is in place, and just to keep children as safe and protected and at as low risk of potentially being affected by COVID as possible. Also, there'll be some spaces in the classroom, so where you can expect maybe some distancing between tables. So for example, like it's possible that the 2 meter distance or the 1.5 meter distance law they've imposed will stand in the classrooms as well. So as well as reduced numbers, there'll also be a great deal of distancing to also help ensure that the safety is maximized during this time. And basically and just before we move on, I was gonna say like one of the main reasons for the rationale for going back to school is that the time out from school, like a prolonged time out of school for children, it can be very detrimental to their cognitive, social, and academic development compared to if they were to remain at home and be safe from home. So as you know, like school, it's basically like, it's their future. So if they're out of that for a prolonged time, they're not getting like that face-to-face teaching, then this can have a severe effect on like maybe their work output, how they're receiving their learning, maybe may have an effect on how they can prepare for exams. And this is particularly the case with differences in like areas. So for example, those maybe in more affluent areas will have like, as a result, will have wider access to better resources. So some may have better quality, be able to access quality tutoring and quality books and studying materials, whereas maybe those who are not in such affluent areas won't have that same access. So again, that will just only increase what's already a big divide in access to education opportunities. That gap will only increase with a prolonged time out of school. So it's really important that it's important that children get back into the classroom as quickly, but also as safely as possible. And the only exception to this really is if perhaps the child, like maybe if one of your children has like an underlying health condition, then it may be on like the advice of the government or like your GP that perhaps maybe they shouldn't return to school right now. But if this is the case, then usually the GP would have contacted either your child or somebody you know by now to let you know that that's the case. So if you haven't heard from your GP or your medical team or your specialist in that regard, then you can assume that it's okay to send your child back to school.
Yeah, and to sort of really add to that as well, what Kofi said was to stress the importance of how school is really important to the child's social, cognitive, and emotional development, and that's why there's been a big push to get children back to school this coming September, to ensure that children are not negatively affected by being out of school. So yeah. So now we're going to go on to speak a bit about how we might want to support some children who might be in particularly very anxious or really worried to go back to school. So it's quite normal for a child or young person to feel quite worried to go back to school. You know, we are actually going through a global pandemic, and it's a very normal emotion to experience, especially when you hear things in the news, when guidelines are keeping on changing. when we get different information. It's perfectly natural to feel very worried. But sometimes some children are more anxious or more worried than another child or another person the similar age. And this is the kind of, these are the sort of children we're going to be focusing on in our current presentation, and how, if your child or you know someone's child is particularly worried, how you will be able to support them to manage their worries and make them feel confident to go back to school. So, but before we begin, we thought it might be helpful to speak about what causes worries. So, like I said before, this is particularly speaking about the children who might be more anxious or more worried than another child. So there are lots of factors that contribute towards this. One is genes. So 1/3 of what causes a child to become really particularly worried or anxious might be genetics. And that's something that we have inherit. So some parents or like sort of grandparents, this is sort of passed on from DNA, where we might have certain genes which might make us more vulnerable, more likely to be anxious or worried about certain situations. Another thing that might cause a child to be more worried or more anxious than another child might be experiencing adverse life events. So when we talk about adverse life events, we're talking about things like the pandemic, like the global crisis we're experiencing right now. So some children might be experiencing more worry and might be more likely to be distressed when they experience the global pandemic. Also, different children have different coping experiences. If some children have, from young age, been exposed to a lot of difficult experiences, they might be right now have some coping skills or might be better able to adapt to the changes that we're going through right now. Whereas some other children who might not have had a big sort of life-changing experience, like the current experience, like the global pandemic, they might be more anxious because they just haven't had that experience yet, where they sort of learn the skills to adapt to new changes.
And just to add a bit to that as well. Children at the stage of their development, they do a lot of their learning through observation, particularly around their peers and even their parents or caregivers. So a lot of their anxiety may also come from learning from others' reactions. And I won't go into it too much, but this is something that's known as social learning theory. And it's just, as I've said, it basically entails learning through observation. So for a child at this stage of their development, that's one of their main sources of learning and really interacting with their environment. So it's possible that by maybe seeing someone being around their friends and seeing them worried, or maybe seeing like their parents or caregiver worried, that in turn may also reflect, transfer to the child, and they may also learn from that and may worry just as well as a result.
So we spoke about a little bit about what causes worry, and now we thought it would be helpful to sort of explain how we could actually recognise worry in children. So yeah, worry, this basically really varies from child to child. There are lots of different ways that you could recognise worry. So some signs that you might see is that you might see your child might have butterflies, or might get butterflies in the stomach, or might get a funny feeling in the stomach. Some kids, they might find that the heart is beating really fast. Some people, you might see them breathing very fast, or say that they're having difficulties breathing. Some kids might say that they have a dry mouth and might find it difficult to speak. Some children might sweat a lot. This diagram basically just shows and gives a list of all the different things that you might recognize in a young person or a child if they do start worrying. But it's also important to note as well that whilst it might be easy to spot some of these sort of signs when your child becomes worried, it's also important to look out for any behavioral changes. So for example, a child who might be particularly anxious might start withdrawing from other social activities. They might not be, they might not be as social as they were before. They might be spending more time in their room. Some children might become more angry, or like start shouting, or start communicating differently. So it's really important to notice any changes in also behavioral, the way a child behaves as well, if you're trying to understand them and trying to figure out whether they're quite anxious or not. I'm not sure if there's anything else you'd like to add to this, Kofi.
Yeah, just to sort of reiterate what Sintu said, this is not an exhaustive list. There may be other symptoms as well, but these are the most common that have been reported. And just to say that it just re-emphasize once more that worry is different within everyone. So each child may react to something in a different way, and worry may present itself differently. And it's a completely normal reaction. It's not anything to be like, well, it's not anything sort of like be overly concerned about. It's completely different to everyone. It's like a normal sort of phase and reaction to a threatening stimuli. Even we ourselves as adults, like when we're faced with a stressful situation or something that we haven't really learned how to deal with, we too tend to worry. And we may also have different ways in which we express that worry. So it's a completely normal feeling. Everyone feels it. And yeah, as we go on in the presentation too, we'll be talking a bit about things that maybe you can do to sort of help manage these worries if and when they come about.
So one way that you can help sort of manage your child's worry is to literally have a chat with your child when you notice they're going to be experiencing a new change in their life, or for example when you're talking about returning to school and you notice that they become worried. Literally having a cup of tea or juice with your child, having a chat, asking them how they're feeling, what's on their minds, and getting this out of the system can help sort of manage some of those worries. We all know that when we speak about stuff, that might be one way that, you know, we could ease some of the worries, you know, so you pass on the worry to someone else. So really sort of being there for a child and having a chat and asking questions about what they're worried about, why they're worried about this, what you could do to support them can really help some of the worries that they may be experiencing, particularly when during this time as well, when children are going back to school. There are a lot of changes that are happening around us, including how changes will be in school. Some children will be going from primary school to secondary school, changing classes, new teachers, new faces. This is a really different time that young people are living through right now. So really sort of getting them to sort of open up and share the experiences of how everything's going would be one way that you can support your child in managing any sort of worries that they may be experiencing. Sorry, go on, Kofi.
Yeah, I would say another useful technique is called the grounding technique. In a minute, we will actually ask for some volunteers to help us with this. But first of all, just to explain a bit, this is a useful technique that can be used particularly when we're in a very stressed or anxious state, because by using these techniques, we can engage with our 5 senses to distract ourselves from these worrying thoughts and really focus on things that we can see around us, things that we can touch, things that we can hear, things that we can smell, and things that we can taste. So as the numbering at the bottom suggests, along with the images, with this technique, we look for 5 things that we can see, 4 things that we can touch, 3 things that we can hear, 2 things that we can smell, and 1 thing that we can taste.
And just to add on to this as well, adding on to what Kofi just said, we use grounding when we have particularly worrying thoughts. So when our minds are distracted with something that we're really worried about, it might be difficult to move our mind from those thoughts to the present. So we use this technique, as Kofi said, to really ground ourselves and bring our sort of concentration and our mind back to the present. So let's say if you could maybe like think about something that you've been really worried about, or think about a situation which causes you a lot of stress. In those situations, you're probably thinking a lot of things, which probably makes you more worried and more anxious. So using this technique, such as grounding, which we'll explain to you, will help you sort of shift that attention from those thoughts to the present.
Yeah. So to help us do that and to make sure that you guys have a clear idea of what we're talking about, we're actually going to be asking for a volunteer to help us with each of these techniques to give you guys an idea and to demonstrate. So we'll ask for 1 volunteer now, and we'll just ask for that volunteer, whoever is brave enough to put themselves forward. We'd ask you to actually turn your camera on, and the first thing we'd want you to do is to really look for 5 things around you, like in your house, just anything, just 5 things that you can see.
Yeah, so you're using your sight to engage your sense of sight, to name out loud 5 objects in your space. And really describe them to me. They like to tell me the color of the object, what it looks like, any patterns, etc.
Okay, whoever wants to volunteer, can you put your hand up and then I will choose. I'm going to count to 5 and then I will choose whoever put the hand up first. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We haven't got anybody.
No, they're shy. Yeah.
Okay, anybody wants to volunteer, you can just start maybe if you don't know where to find the hand, the visual hand, you can start, just say me, and then I will.
Yeah.
Me.
Sorry,
Hi, Hagar.
Hi there.
Oh, it's Hajar. Hi. Yeah, okay. Would you like to check? Yeah. Hajar.
Oh, Hajar. Okay, Hajar.
Hi,
how are you pronounce your name? Hello.
Yes.
Fine, thank
Hi.
you.
Yeah.
So how do you pronounce your name?
Hajar.
Hajar.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Hajar.
H-A-G-I-R.
Yes. H-A-G-I-R.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually,
Cool.
your colleague is my colleague in a way.
Okay. Yeah.
From Zanachess.
Yeah.
So and I'm in the same borough and the same team where you are, response team.
Oh wow. Okay. I
So,
see.
okay,
Nice.
she's my colleague over there. So, would you like me to describe 5
Objects.
Yeah. Five things you can see, like objects.
Okay,
And
the
really
first
describe
I
them
could
to us.
see in front of me, I could see just a beautiful plant, which you can see a part of it in the back of my head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see a purple color of flower over there, hydrangea.
Yeah. How does that look?
Behind me, I can see a fuchsia flower and yellow and red.
Yep, we could see that too.
Yep. We can see it.
Brilliant. So that's 5 objects. Yeah.
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 Is that 5?
You. Yeah.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Hajar.
cool.
Thank you, Hagar.
Thank you, Ajay.
Yeah.
So we'll ask for our next one to describe 4 things they can touch. If anyone else wants to put themselves forward.
Okay, anybody else?
So 4 things that you could pick up and feel, and then sort of just describe it. So for example, I have a squishy ball in my hand. This is an example. So do we have any volunteers who will be able to pick up 4 objects and just sort of describe to us how it feels like and the texture?
I don't mind doing it.
Okay.
Is that
who's
Hawa
that,
or who?
No, this is Muna. Muna,
Hi,
hi,
Muna.
Kofi, hi,
Muna.
Sintu.
Hello, Muna.
Hi, you're right, guys.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Nice to see you.
Nice
I'm
to see
hiding
you.
today.
Can we have your
Yeah.
camera
Come on.
on so we can see your beautiful
No,
face?
no, man. No,
Muna,
hair's not
come
done.
on.
The hair's not done.
You can do it without the camera.
Put your scarf on,
you.
it's okay.
We trust you. Don't worry.
Don't worry. Let me, doesn't need the second option. So what? 5 things we saved?
4.
4 things
Four
you can touch.
that you could
4
pick
things.
up.
Okay, so I'm holding coffee. I got coffee in a mug. I can feel
How does
it's
that
warm.
feel?
Dark
Nice.
coffee,
Yeah.
black.
Yep.
I got a laptop right in front of me, nice
Okay.
and soft.
Yep.
I got a pen.
Yep. How's the pen feel?
It feels like, it's a good pen. It's working.
Yeah. Cool.
And I got some papers in front of me as well.
Nice.
So
Yeah. So, thank you for that, man. It's as
Thank
simple
You're
as that.
welcome, guys.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Muna. Yeah,
Thanks.
okay.
Yeah. And next, 3 things we can hear. Anybody else want to volunteer for that?
So just sort of listening out to 3 things that you could hear in your space.
Yeah, can literally be anything.
I think I can go because just we were trying to encourage as much parents to participate. I could hear my daughter in the other room talking on the phone.
Was it loud?
Well, I could hear her, but you might not hear her because she's not in the same room with me.
Right. Yeah.
I could hear some cars running outside because I'm on the 4th floor, but I could still, when they drive through, I could still hear them. What else? I could, when I move, I could hear the chair making some squeezy noise.
Yeah.
Yep.
What else?
Yeah, cool. So yeah, as with all these,
I could hear you as well talking now.
Yeah, of course, you can hear us
Of
talking.
yeah. Yeah, really engaging with the sounds around you. That's particularly key.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ikram. And then for the last two, so the next one is two things we can smell. Does anyone want to volunteer for that?
Can I go?
Yeah.
Yes, you may. Yes.
No.
Yeah.
Amal?
Amal, yes.
Yes. Hello, Amal.
Smell scented oil. Actually, it's very nice.
What smell is that?
And I can smell the coffee. Actually, the tea I'm drinking. Yeah. Yes. Thank you.
Nice. Thank you.
Nice one. Thank you very much, Amal.
Thanks, Amal.
Thank you.
Then one final volunteer to tell us anything that they can taste, if there's anything around them, or if they've got something in their mouth. Hello, who's that, sorry?
Can I do it?
Yeah.
Yes, is it Atka?
Atka?
Atka? Hi. Hello, Atka.
Sure.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So Atka, one thing you can taste.
One thing I can taste is the tea I'm drinking.
Nice.
Nice. What tea is it?
Red tea.
Red tea?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Nice.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
You all saved me, because in case we had no volunteers, I had a chili in my house that I fried, and I was going to taste it. So I'm very grateful, Akka, that you decided to taste your tea instead of making me taste my chili. So that's a wrap. So that's
you can leave that for after, because we don't want you to stop the presentation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Feeling the heat of the chili. Thanks anyway. Thanks for everyone.
Thank you from all our volunteers.
So yes, just to summarize, so this is a grounding technique, and we basically use our 5 senses to really engage in the environment that we are in. And as you can see, when you were doing this exercise, all you'd be concentrating on is actually picking up the object, smelling the object, tasting it, and really describing it. And this basically, as you can imagine, will refocus your concentration to the current present moment. So you can imagine if there's a child who's particularly worried about something, by encouraging them to do this, you're basically helping them shift their thoughts and their worries from whatever they're thinking about to the present, to here and now. So, and this can be particularly helpful when maybe you walk your child to school and they might be worrying about some things. You might want to get them to do this grounding exercise on their walk to school. So you might ask your child to name 5 things they could see, 4 things that they could touch, 3 things they could hear, 2 things that they could smell, and 1 thing they could taste. So you might want to have a sweet or something in your pocket. So, and this will be particularly helpful if they are particularly anxious about going back to school.
Sintu, if I can say, I'm just going to use that technique on my son who's starting secondary school on Tuesday. So thank you very much for the tip.
Okay.
I'll be using it.
Sure,
on the path of the long journey, yes.
Yeah. Okay. What are you going to? What snack are you going to bring in the school bus?
I'll try to choose something healthy, because he's not a morning person. Yeah, he doesn't like breakfast in the morning. So
no breakfast. Okay.
Yeah. No, he will have to have a breakfast before he goes, but he's not keen. So I'll make sure I get something else with me in the bag. Yeah. Thanks for the tip. Yeah, I'll let you know how it goes.
Yeah, for sure. Let us know how it goes.
Thanks.
Yeah, and then the next technique we can use is breathing. So just a note on this, if maybe either yourself or your child has breathing difficulties or a breathing condition, then it might be better to go with the grounding technique instead. But breathing techniques in particular can be particularly useful when we're in a stress state, because it can help us sort of release all that tension and anxiety which may be building up inside of us. And the thing with this as well is that it's very easy to implement anywhere. So this can be done from the comfort of your home. Maybe even if your child is at school, like they can try it maybe in their free time. And even as parents and adults as well, you can do this wherever. You can do it with your child. So it's very easy to implement, particularly useful and quick to use when worried. So it's very convenient. And one technique in particular under this, which is really useful, is something that's called the 4-4-6 breathing technique. So what we'll ask is, we would ask all of you to kind of join us with this. And Sintu will basically act as the modeler. So I'll be reading out the instructions on how to do this. and Sintu will demonstrate. And if you could all partake and copy what Sintu does while I'm reading out the instructions, that too would be really helpful. So we're just gonna start. So Sintu, if you could just start by closing your eyes for me. And I want you to start by breathing in for 4 seconds. So as you're doing this, really making sure you're inhaling, and as you feel your rib cage expand and your stomach rise as the air begins to fill up. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Then next, I want you to hold that breath just for an additional 4 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then finally, Sintu, I want you to breathe out for 6 seconds, making sure you breathe out slowly as you release all the tension and as you feel your rib cage and your stomach go down. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And there you have it, guys. That's the 4-4-6 breathing. And you can repeat that as many times as you need to until you feel like you're calm and you're in a relaxed state. So like I said, it's very easy, very simple to use, and very effective, particularly when we're in a worried or anxious state and we need something quick to implement just to get us back to calm and normal levels.
And there's lots of different types of breathing techniques as well. So this is just an example of one that we use. I'm sure there might be other techniques that other people have used in this session. So you might have heard something called 4-4-4 breathing. You might have heard something called square breathing. It's really different. You know, there's different kinds of techniques out there. So it's important that you find one that really suits you and helps you. A quick biology behind as well. The reason why we do deep breathing is when we're particularly anxious is because when we're really worried, you might notice that your heart starts beating fast, you might start breathing fast, you might be feeling quite on edge, but that's because within our body, everything's working at a fast rate and the blood is pumping quite fast, and we feel quite nervous. So when we actually do this deep breathing, we're actually slowing our body down and we're telling our brains that everything's okay, and we're restoring that sort of calm within our bodies. So whilst we might be experiencing all these worries and signs of anxiety within our bodies, we can actually control this by actually slowing down our breathing and bringing our body to a state of calm.
Cool. And then our final technique, so this is a bit more advanced and might involve a bit more movement. So this is something that we call graded exposure. And this is particularly useful for what we're talking about now, for the new normal and going back to school. This, as well as might be the case, is if your child might be feeling a bit nervous or worried, understandably so, about going back to school. This can be very useful to sort of help tackle that and basically get them into the groove of going back and make them feel reassured that everything will be okay. So just a brief theory behind this. The brief theory is that with children, when they confront their anxious expectations, they learn new information. So they learn by confronting these worries whether they're true or not. And if they are true, then at least they learn information and ways in which they can deal with this worry. So it's really helpful for them as well as part of their growth and their development and their learning to put these to the test and see whether or not what they're worrying about is really true or not. And if so, then they know that there are ways that they can deal with it. So as a simple sort of method for graded exposure in the context of going back to school, it would basically involve going on by a step-by-step plan. So basically the first step is usually like something that can be easily done. It's like meant as something that's maybe less anxiety provoking, up until as you gradually go up the steps to the highest steps, which is what's considered to be the most anxiety provoking for the child in the context of what their worries might be. We're going to use the school, for example. We'll start maybe giving an example of what step at the least anxiety provoking stage might be. So this might involve for your child maybe talking to their friend about going back to school. So we recommend a friend because that's someone that the child interacts with on a nearly day-by-day basis. It's someone that they know and they feel comfortable with, and someone that perhaps they can turn to for a general conversation, and maybe if there's any worries or problems, they may turn to them and talk about it. So they can have like maybe a talk with their friend over the phone about, you know, going back to school, how they're feeling, what they're looking forward to, and perhaps what's going to be different, and maybe how this might be a worry for them. Just generally getting that conversation going. And then going from this, depending on how they fare on that step, you can take it up a notch. So maybe this is where the parent can get involved. You can talk to the teacher about the child returning back to school, and just asking them, like, you know, what's the school going to do in terms of putting safety protocols in place to ensure the safety of children this time. And just, it's a good way to sort of liaise with the teacher as well in this situation. And then going up the steps, the next step would involve perhaps driving to the school premises. So this can be, it's flexible as to when you want to do this. It can be perhaps, it doesn't have to be during the school time. It can be in the evening when it's quiet, whatever's suitable or whatever the child prefers. But it's just to get them used to being back around the school and having a look at the school again. So, you know, they'll be outside, they can maybe take a walk onto the school playground, maybe perhaps if the school classrooms are open, maybe go inside, just get a feel for everything and just see how it is. And then going up to the top, to the end, this would hopefully result in the child, depending on how they've done with the previous steps, being able to sit in the classroom and attend school. It doesn't have to be a full day to begin with, but maybe a half day, see how they fare, see how they feel, and just gradually get them back into the room, going back to school, and hopefully them being able to complete a full day with little to no worries. So it's a very useful technique, and it's something that's really good for working with your child to come up with and seeing how they feel and seeing the steps that they want to take. And if there are any issues along the way, then it's also a good way to sort of communicate and talk with your child to find out what's worrying them and find out ways in which you can maybe break down some of those steps into smaller, more achievable ones that can go at their pace.
Mm-hmm. And yes, and essentially adding to what Kofi said, I think the key thing behind this is when you're supporting a child to go back to school is that you really sort of plan their journey back. So if you know a child or know your own child's really worried about going back to school and they don't want to go back to school, how many sort of like graded sort of steps that Kofi mentioned can be particularly really helpful, because you having that sort of plan in place to make sure that they take these little steps to eventually go back to school and sort of face that sort of worry that they have. So, yeah. Yeah, we were going to have a discussion later after the sort of presentation to hear your thoughts on how you're feeling about sending your child to school, or sort of any thoughts you're experiencing, any worries that you might be having as parents. But I think, Ikram, you mentioned we'll have this later after we've done the presentation. So before we have this discussion, I thought it might be helpful just to summarise what we've spoken about. So at the start, we spoke a bit about government guidelines and how the government are now really pushing children to return to school as they feel like the risk of actually not going to school, the social, cognitive, emotional sort of impacts it has on the child outweighs the risk of getting coronavirus. So now we are facing this sort of new normal, which is children are expected to go back to school and sort of adapt to the sort of new changes that are being imposed in school. We spoke a bit about how children might be quite anxious to go back to school and what might cause this sort of worry and anxiety. And we also spoke about how you might be able to recognise worries in children and young people. And we spoke about how you may be able to manage these worries, including techniques such as grounding and deep breathing exercises. And we also spoke about the graded exposure technique, which is basically testing your child's worries and exposing them to a particular situation that they're really worried about, and decreasing the in that sense. So that is all from us.
Thank you very much. All this lovely information. Before we open the floor to people to ask questions, we have two speakers. You can talk in Arabic if you want, or Arabic and English. I will have الاستاذة Muna first to tell us, because you are involved with, you coordinate supplementary school, you have your own child who's starting secondary school. If you can share a bit of your experience from what you get from other parents in the community, and in the meantime your own experience, just to feel the parents the sense of what to ask for or what to look for. If I can give you the mic and you can start. Welcome, Muna.
Hello, assalamu alaikum. Hi, everyone. Thank you very much, Kofi and Sintu. I really appreciated your time on a Sunday. Adding to what you said, for example, I have my kids starting tomorrow, going back to primary school, 2 of them. And the school really done a great job by emailing us more than a week ago, risk assessment, what to expect from us and from the children. Step-by-step guidance on so many different things in different levels. Washing hands if you're not feeling well, you know, all these things, etc., etc. Lunchtime, break time, playtime, starting time, finishing time, even like, you know, arriving to school, they have two different time, and 8:30 and 8:45, and using all available gates and doors. So they'll be using about 5 entrances to the school. And the thing is, what helps with my situation, I think, is like when we were asked to go back 1st of June this year, I did take my kids for 7 weeks to school, Monday to Thursday, even though I was dropping them different timing, picking them up different time. But, you know, I think they got used to quickly to the rules. And I was worried about my youngest one, because he was only 5. But he really like shocked me and impressed me, because he followed all the instructions, and it was absolutely not a problem for him to go back. And they looked forward to going back, and they enjoyed it. And that's why it's easier for my kids to go back tomorrow, because they were only away for 6 weeks, literally. But of course, I do speak to so many different people, because I work as a supplementary school partnership manager in Westway Trust for RBKC's supplementary schools. And they do have a lot of concerns and worries, the parents and the coordinators of those supplementary schools. So I'm going back on Tuesday, and I will be going, you know, with my manager through all the different changes and recommendations and things to print out and give out and provide for all these supplementary schools. So I'm not worried about that, but to prepare the schools to go back, so I can only speak to individuals and try to support the ones who come across. But there is a lot of people worried. And I think the biggest problem, Kofi and Sintu, and I did mention that when I saw you last time in a coffee morning, is the parents who never send their kids since March to school, and they have elderly parents that they're looking after.
Yeah.
So, you know, they having to send their kids. And one of them that I know, her son is asthmatic, her daughter is very anxious. So the son goes to primary school, the daughter goes to secondary school, and they haven't been back since March. They're very anxious, and the mom's anxious, and she looks after her own mom, so the grandma. And, you know, all this back and forth, in and out, and she's absolutely terrified. So, you know, the school is going out of their way, sending emails, kept in touch throughout the 6 weeks, and, you know, like to encourage us to go back, and, you know, this is what we're doing, we're looking forward. And they even, all the teachers called all the students and their parents to check on them to make sure they are ready to come back. But still, you know, I think is step by step, like what you guys highlighted, Kofi and Sintu, is important to prepare. You know, the parents themselves, they need to check their emails and make sure they read all the information, go to the website of the schools, and, you know, make sure they are up to date with all the information. And then after that is step by step. But definitely this is going to be the new norm, and this is how it's going to be from now on. And, you know, everybody's a bit anxious somehow, because they might know elderly, especially our community, the minorities, us, Sudanese, Eritrean, you know, all these different backgrounds. We all have someone that we know or someone we look after, or, you know, so of course you are a bit worried, but, you know, if you just be careful and do the wear the mask and do your, you know, constant washing hands and all this stuff, I think, you know, we'll be all right. But we just have to keep ourselves updated and think positive, because it's very important as well that how you feel yourself.
Yes.
If you're anxious, you're going to pass it on to your child, you know, whether, you know, so it's very important that somehow you get over, you know, how you're feeling by, you know, making sure that you are ready and preparing yourself. So preparation is the key, really, for everyone, for the adults going back to work, for even me, I'm going back to work, and I don't know what I'm expected, you know, what's expected of me and what's happening, and because, you know, it's not going to be like how it was when I left last time on the 20th of March. But, you know, I think I'm ready for it. And that's it, just one step at a time.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, it's pretty much as you said. We're all learning here. It's a very uncertain time for us all. And yeah, I know I live with a vulnerable person. You know, I've had worries about, you know, going back to work and going to certain places. So it's pretty normal.
So what do you do? Do you self-isolate? Do you stay in your room? What do you do with the person?
So I'm allowed to go out step by step, but it's just it's like what's been said. It's very I have to be very careful about you know, the procedures I take. So I have to make sure that if I'm going out, like I always have my face mask. I've always got my alcohol gel. Maybe sometimes I even have to take a pair of gloves. And then when I come back in, you know, my shoes off at the front of the door. I can't walk in anywhere without walking with my shoes. I take them off straight away. I go and wash my hands, sanitize, and take off any clothes that I've worn outside and put them in the wash. So yeah, just following the protocols very strictly.
Yeah. So that's what I think most parents need to do when their kids come back from school, because kids, you know, even if you tell them not to touch things, they always touch. So and one of the things in rescue assessment, it says like they're going to be advising, the teachers will be advising the kids not to touch their faces, you know, because they'll be washing their hands often, but still they'll be, you know, all the time like reminded not to touch their faces. And that's a habit, I think, more human being. I mean, even if you say don't, that's when you do, you know. So, you know, I think it's just training ourselves. And I think most of us, majority of us, been doing it for the last few months anyway. So it should be easy. Yeah, it should be somehow. It shouldn't be that hard. Some people are not going to be following the rules and regulations, and don't get upset. Just, you know, make sure you keep your distance.
You can do what you can do.
And that's it. Exactly. Don't worry about the others.
And I think one of the best things, thanks Mona for giving all this sharing and information. One of the things with children, if we keep talking to them, they like talking, they like asking, have different conversation all the time, planning, and giving them chance to speak to their friends over the phone as well. And since they allow people to socialize, I guess the past few weeks, I think it hasn't been too bad from the children point of view. When they do talk about it, it's not as bad as we were making it to them. So we need just to, sometime we as parents, to reduce our worries a little bit more, not to make it very obvious, and to try to transfer it to them, because as you mentioned earlier in your presentation, these things can be genetically transmitted to our children, our worries, our concerns, but if we keep talking about it and reassuring them, it's not going to be as bad, really. Thank you. And I think I'm going to give the chance now to our other parent, Rasha. Are you there? Can you hear me, Rasha? Okay, hi. Yes, I see you with your lovely yellow scarf. Thank you for agreeing to share your experience. Yes, we can hear you.
Hello, assalamu alaikum, everybody. I don't know, do I have to speak in English or Arabic?
It's up to you.
Okay.
I can just put it in the chat or yeah. لكن the majority of them they speak Arabic, so يتكلم بالعربي ما مشكلة. تفضل حبيبي.
عشان في ناس باقيين.
شكرا جزيلا أستاذة إكرام، وشكرا أستاذة منى. Thank you Kofi and thank you. Can see you. Okay. السلام عليكم وأتمنى happy new year, happy academic new year. وأتمنى إن شاء الله السنة دي تكون سنة أكاديمية جديدة مليانة بالتفاؤل والإيجابية وتكون مختلفة إن شاء الله. طبعاً هنا هتكلم كأم عاشت التجربة بتاعت اللوك داون، وبعديها من برضو الأمهات القلائل اللي رجعوا go back to school في 2 جون تقريباً أو 3 جون قررت أولادي يرجعوا المدارس. فلما تيجي تتكلم عن الرجوع للمدارس يا جماعة وتتكلم للأمهات عن النقطة دي، يعني ده قرار ما سهل وبيج ديسيشن خصوصاً في الفترة دي، يعني لأنه دائماً أنا بقول الأمومة هي مربوطة بالمشاعر. يعني الأمومة ما عندها كتالوج، ما عندها هنا، لأنه ما بتخضع للمنطق ولا بتخضع للعقلانية، فلأنها مربوطة بالعاطفة، عشان كده صعب أخذ القرار. لكن أنا encourage all the parents الأمهات والأبهات إنه نشجعوا ويرجعوا أولادنا للمدرسة، لأنه أنا اختبرت الشيء ده ولأسباب طبعاً برضو أذكرها ليه أنا قررت أرجع للمدرسة وبسرعة. لكن أنا بقول للأمهات لما ترجعوا للمدرسة وهتشوفوا الاحتياطات اللي بتعمل المدرسة هتطمئنوا إن شاء الله وهتشجعوا. Just you need to break your fear barriers and start school. قبل ما تمشوا المدرسة حاولوا تكلموا لأولادكم وخلوهم يتكلموا عن رغبتهم في الرجوع، عدم الرجوع، ناقشون يعني عشان تشوفوا رأيهم وتشجعون. وأنا زي ما بقول فاقد الشيء لا يعطيه. لو ما أنت براك كأم أول حاجة كسرتي حاجز الخوف ما بتقدري تقنعي أطفالك بإنه نمشي المدرسة. عشان كده لازم الشيء يكون أول حاجة تبدي بنفسك وترجعي عشان تقدري ترجعي أولادك. فأنا بتذكر كنت مترددة في جون أرجعوا أولادي أو ما أرجعهم. كان عندي بلد تست مع النيرس حقتي، فمشيت وبتكلم معاه قلت لها أنا والله المدارس فتحت احتمال، لأنه سنة أولى بدوا على طول، هو كان في سنة أولى مترددة أرجع أولادي أو ما أرجعهم. قلت لي أنا عندي 4 جراند كيدز، يعني قلت لي كل يوم بشوفهم just moving في سبيس بتاعت 50 متر و how they are bored and stressed and getting physical. قلت لي make me قلت لي feel very bad و break my heart. قلت لي in different position in different situations this is type of abuse، لكن we have to do it. قلت لي what is about this situation. قلت لي we force us to abuse our kids but we don't have any other option. فعلى طول يعني فكرت في كلام ده وقلت انه فعلا انا حسيت بيهم قدر شنو متألمين وستريس ومرهقين نفسيا الاطفال في المدرسه. بالنسبه للاطفال هي ما للقرايه وبس، هي الانترتيننج، هي البلاينج، هي الفريند، هي حتى الفاميلي الثانيه. يعني الاطفال دول بيقضوا في المدرسه وقت اكثر من اللي بيقضوا معانا، بيتكلموا في المدرسه مع معلمات ومع اصحابهم اكثر ما بيتكلموا معانا. فالمدرسه بالنسبه لهم جزء كبير من حياتهم. فعشان كده انا بشجع الامهات يخلوا اولادهم وencourage their kids to go back to school. يعني فبرضه من الحاجات اللي انا لاحظتها وخلتني اخذ القرار ده ظهر لنا invisible friend. يعني ولدي عمره 6 سنوات عنده صاحب غير مرئي اسمه كيفن، يعني قاعد معانا في البيت. كيفن ده بقى نجي ناخد الاكل ولا خدتي اكل ليه كيفن؟ انا في المطبخ يقول لي داير حاجه، لما ادي يقول لي انا ما سالتك، انا هو كيفن السالي. اجي اقعد في السرير يقول لي كيفن قاعد هنا ما تقعدي. فدي حاجه برضو المتني وحسستني قد شنو هو حاسس بالوحده والوحشه وعايز زول في سنه يشوفه ويلاقيه. ومهما كانت المخاطر الصحيه يا جماعه برضو في مخاطر صحيه اللي هي نفسيه وذهنيه، يعني المنتل هيلث والايموشن هيلث دي يا جماعه برضو عندها حيز كبير في حياتنا واساسيه زي الفيزيكال هيلث. فاحنا برضو المفروض نراعيها في تفكيرنا وفي لما to plan for our decision، يعني ناخدها في اعتبارنا. فالاطفال ما بيعرفوا sometimes to express their feeling. فعشان كده انت if you notice anything يعني في طفل في البيهيفير حقت الطفل حقيقة الحاجات البسيطة الصغيرة دي زي كيفن صاحب ولدي ده اللي ظهر لنا فجأة، دي حاجة بالنسبة لنا كانت ما سهلة كبيرة. فأنا بشجع الأمهات إنه ينتبهوا للتفاصيل الصغيرة دي عندها معاني كبيرة عند الأطفال بالمناسبة، وتوريك قدر شنو هم زي ميس going out، زي ميس their friends، زي ميس socializing. فعشان تكسر حاجز الخوف برضو أنا بشجع الأمهات إنه في شوية تيبس كده ده ممكن يتبعوها، اللي هي try to read school risk assessment، فيها تفاصيل كثيرة. وtalk to your school teacher, your school head teacher. They are always open for talking, welcome for any suggestion. Talk to moms المامس already مثلا like me or منى علي الهسيدية اللي هم عندهم experience، أولادهم already مشوا يعني قدروا يكسروا حاجز الخوف، وأطفالهم بدوا مدارس تكلموا معاهم. وأنا متأكدة دي بتفرق كثير. أنا عندنا بتذكر في جروب الأمهات كانت رافضة كمبليت لأنه ولدي يجي حتى في سبتمبر قالت عندها راي. فأنا بتذكر بعد ولدي نزل ب3 يوم لقيتها هي وولدها واقفين في الصف داخلين المدرسة. قلت لها ما قلتي ما احنا بتجي؟ قلت لي والله تكلمت عن الأمهات الأولاد نزلوا المدرسة وطمنوني وحسيت الموضوع ما بالخطورة دي وقررت أجي. دائما تكلموا للأمهات avoid السوشيال ميديا لأنه فيها إشاعات كثيرة يا جماعة. دائما معلوماتك وخديها من الجفرمنت ويب سايت، واعملي يور ريسيرش. والإحصائيات برضو يا جماعة لما تعملوا إحصائيات فكروا على المدى الكبير. يعني دائما فكروا في إنه لو في 50 ما ال 50 ديل ما هم جيرانك ولا في ال 50 ديل في all England. يعني انت لو ما تجي تعمل احصائيه تشوفيهم مثلا ال 50 ديل ممكن يكون لندن ما فيها ولا واحد حتى. فخلي احصائياتك تكون فيها منطقيه، اعمل ريسيرش براك، اعمل احصائياتك براك. احتماليه اصابه الطفل لا سمح الله بكورونا فيروس واحتمال الشفاء، يعني دائما كل الدراسات اثبتت انه ما في خطر كبير على الاطفال حتى لو اصيبوا. وفي فحوص كثيره او تيست عملت الاطفال وطلعوا مصابين وما عليهم اي اعراض وما ظهر عليهم اي حاجه. فده دليل على انه الاطفال بيقدروا يقاوموا، بس طبعا خطورتهم في انه ممكن ينقلوها للناس الثانيين. فانا دي الحاجات اللي بتمنى الامهات يلاحظوها ويسووها. برضو في الحاجات اللي انا شفتها في المدرسه وريحتني شويه، اللي هي لما تمشي تودي طفلك مثلا زي ما قالت منى المدخل بتاع المدرسه غير المخرج، ده دليل عليه يعني من الحاجات الريسك اسسمنت عملت المدرسه. وبتلقي الدخول في مجموعات وفي اوقات مختلفه، وفي طبعا قياس درجه الحراره كل يوم من الصباح. اي طفل تظهر عليه اعراض او هاي تمبريتشر طبعا فبيرجعوه البيت. والاطفال ما بيشيلوا معاهم اي حاجه من البيت وما بيجيبوا معاهم اي حاجه من المدرسه، يعني احتمال انه ولا شنطه ولا ووتر بطل ولا اي حاجه. ونفس الشيء من المدرسه لا بيجيبوا كتاب ولا بيجيبوا كراس ولا قلم ولا اي حاجه. برضه من الحياه اللي هي بنسى كيس، كل واحد في المدرسه عنده بنسى كيس خاصه به حقته يستعمل، عنده دروج خاصه به. في الكلاس روم ذاته ما اكثر من 15 طفل. وفي اللانش تايم اللانش ذاته تغير بقى سندوتشات في باج، كل طفل بيديه الباج حقته، يعني ما زي زمان اللي هي سيرف يور سيلف تحت بتخلي الناس كلهم يختلطوا مع بعض. فبالنسبه بالاضافه للكلينينج والهاند جيل ايفري وير. فانا بس بقول انه المرأة ليس كمن سمع. فحاولوا يا جماعه الواحد حتى والقرار في يدك، يعني ممكن تمشي والوضع ما يعجبك وتقرري تجي راجعه ثانيه وبتخسري حاجه، لكن at least try, please try, let your child go back to school and see everything by yourself. يعني ما تسمعي كلام الناس وما تسمعي الاشاعات. فكلنا الحمد لله العالم بقى مفتوح والمعلومات سهل، المعلومات السليمه من المواقع الرسميه سهل انك تتحصل عليها. فرجاء اعمل ريسيرش بتاعك انت كأم من المصادر الاساسيه. وده كل اللي انا عايزه اقوله، واتمنى عام سعيد خالي ان شاء الله من كورونا ومن غيرها. بس الحاجه الوحيده اللي اقول انه we have to learn how to live with this virus because we never know when it's going to be end. instead of hiding يعني حنستمر مدسين 200 منا. لازم to adopt how to live with this virus until إن شاء الله research to find some vaccination or something to help us to deal with this pandemic. And thank you very much for this opportunity.
إكرام السلام عليكم.
بس بأمن أنا طبعا يا جماعة المخاوف من حقنا إحنا كأمهات يعني.
Did we lose a voice?
نعم.
I can't hear you. I don't know if it's only me or.
احنا سامعينك يا رحاب لكن وسامعين إكرام كم منك.
اوكي.
دوسي.
اوكي.
مداخلاتي أنا تأمين على كلام سبلمنتري سكول وكده. ففي الفترة اللي فاتت دي أولياء الأمور والحضور كل فترة كده الناس ما قادرة تفهم الحاصل شنو يعني.
الصوت فعلا متقطع.
بشر يعني عايشين في الدنيا دي ونحتاط لحياة.
الصوت متقطع يا إكرام، ما سامعين.
الصوت متقطع.
تكميل لمستقبلهم وكده لازم
نعم. الصوت متقطع يجوز فيديو we miss about 3-4 seconds of your voice. Can you give a chance now for someone else? Yeah, I have to fix it.
I can.
Okay.
Need to raise my hand.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Many thanks to.
بس أنا كنت عايزة أقول.
نحن ما سامعينك. خلي رحاب تتكلم لغاية
طيب. طيب تمام.
حول الغرفة السيجنال. I think السيجنال بتاعتك ضعيفة القاعدة فيها.
طيب رحاب عايزة تقولي مداخلات أو حاجة لحد ما أنا أتحول لمكان تاني.
Okay, I would just like to thank Kofi and Sintu so much for this very useful and important meeting in your Sunday, in your own time. We really appreciate it. And many thanks to the Sudanese community London for the valuable series of very educational topics they raised. And I think it was really the key point I take from this is communication with the children to talk about worries and maybe face our own worries as well. So is communication with ourselves, with the government sides, with the with the guidelines, is learning about these things and sort of absorbing them and actually look into school risk assessment and make sure. So it's educating ourselves really and then communicating with our children. I would like to say maybe this communication should be extended to schools as well. I work in high school and the first 3 days we just had the kids like work as normal, and yes, we show them what is expected from them, but they wasn't any talk about these worries. So maybe there should be more time dedicated to actually talking about it rather than having it all in the back of our minds. And the other thing, sometimes I notice some children.
رحاب برضو فقدنا الصوت معك. سوري رحاب. We can't hear you رحاب. دوستي حاجة في الصوت؟
Sorry, was I muted all the time?
No, just the last 20 seconds. The last 20 seconds. Just repeat where you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Yes, we miss you for 20 seconds, not longer than that.
Okay, because I was muted somehow. So I think communication should be extended to schools. So maybe in our scheme of work or lesson plan, we dedicated some time to actually talking with the kids, maybe in smaller groups, and take that worry and anxiousness into account. And my question actually to you is, if a mother notices her child is so anxious about this, they don't want to go to school, well beyond the point of what communication can do, what do we do? Do we go to the GB? Do we, you know, do we just leave them at home? If the parents are convinced that it's okay to go to school, but the child is just so worried about it, what is the action plan then? We talk to them and everything, but you know, still so worried about this. So that's it from me, and thanks again for this lecture.
شكرا أستاذة رحاب. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, I moved from the room where I was in. I moved to
yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
Welcome.
Okay, I won't be talking too much because we want to give a chance to people to ask questions and, you know, to overcome their concern, especially to see you and, you know, the NHS team. There was a question where someone asked in the chat where they can find the government guidelines. So we put the link in the chat. So if you wanna check that out, and if you need more information, you can always come back to us as Sudanese Community and Information Center, or I myself, I'm gonna put my number in the chat so people can, because I have a lot of information and I can get more information in regards to going back to school from NHS or from the organization we work with. And we have a school as well, so we need to make sure we are up to date in our policy and procedures and risk assessment as well. Thank you. And now maybe whoever wants to contribute or say to ask question can put their hand up, and then we'll give them a chance to speak. Thank you.
I just thought I quickly answer. We have. Is that how you say it?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
So you said you asked how we could support a child who does not completely want to go back to school, and you provide communication and whatnot. I think in that case, it's really important to work with the school, because I just posted a link to the government guidelines, but in the government guidelines, it stresses the importance of schools to be understanding of children who might be really worried about going to school. And the government are advising each schools to work with the families, to work with the child, and how best they could support the child to come back to school. So if parents and family at home have tried to send their child back to school, and the child is just really anxious and just not wanted to go back to school, it's very important that this communication is had with the school to see what support plan and that both the parent, the families can come up with and work together with the school to come up with a solid plan to get the child back to school. If it might be something, if there's something more, so let's say the child might be really anxious, or might have other sort of worries. In that case, maybe if there's something more to this, it might be helpful to speak with a GP or GP to see whether a referral can be made to the local child mental health services like CAMS. And we can also put information on from our side, from the Government for Health and Wellbeing Service, our details we'll post on the chat to see whether what referral here might be helpful as well. So yeah. After that, in the first instance, just to engage with the school and see how best you can support the child to go back.
Thank you.
I just want to add one thing in regards to behavior issue. It might occur when the children, they go back to school. We have a parent who shared with us that her son was really, because she had to send him to school, and his behavior really changed towards playing with his friends and listening to the teacher and all that. And there was complaint, actually was erased from the teacher. But what we can say to the parents, you don't have to worry about that, because the school are prepared to expect this kind of behavior, and they will deal with it in a good way. So it shouldn't be like a problem for you to have a barrier not to send your child, because it's going to be different for them. I mean, they've been in lockdown for some time, and then all of a sudden they went back to their normal school, which is not normal in a sense, with more restriction. So they're not going to comply with all the rules. Of course, it's going to be issue and behavior problem, but I'm sure the school will understand, and they will, as long as we talk to them. What I wanted to share earlier when my voice started to disappear is the preparation for going back to school is really good, and is teaching us as parents how to get closer to the school and to work with them for our children point of view. And I mean, I'm talking to you for where I'm standing as a parenting facilitator. We deliver program to parents, and this is my official job. So we always encourage parents to be talking to the school all the time, because they are there to support us, to make sure that our children, they achieve their goals, they achieve their performing, and to set up a future plan. So there is no harm if you talk to the school. And we've been learning a lot. And to be honest with you, my own view about most of the parents locally, or the one I get involved through all this Zoom and session we've been attending, I am really, really surprised, even from our school, how strong parents they become to stand up for their rights and to go about it, and to know what to do when there is this kind of struggle. So well done to all the parents, and shouldn't be any fear for you to like make not the right decision to send your child back to school, because they really need to go back and experience. It's a different thing, and it's going to be like a memory in their life. You can even ask them to write about it. So children are really, really resilient when it comes to challenges and things like that. Thank you. I have Lamin, if you want to do your contribution. Thank you.
Yeah, hello. Good evening, everybody. My name is Lamin Elias. First of all, I want to thank the speakers and also to thank the organizers. Actually, as we know, they're the hidden victims with hidden reasons, like some parents, maybe they have serious health conditions, and they are afraid to send their people at this time to school because they are afraid that maybe their kids or children may be infected with this virus, and through that, the parents themselves. And just my question is, how are you going to deal with this issue? Thank you very much.
Yeah, Alamin, first of all, thank you for that. So earlier in the presentation, we made it clear that from what the government have made clear from the start, is that the chances of the child actually transmitting coronavirus and catching it is very low, extremely low. But also that if there's a risk, like if they either have an underlying health condition or they're living with someone with a serious underlying medical health condition, then the GP would have contacted them beforehand to speak to the family and suggest what should be done, rather than them going back to school now. So if that hasn't been the case, then you can probably assume that it's okay for the child to go back to school. But I'd say that if you're still worried as well, then it may also be, it wouldn't hurt to also just contact like your GP or your medical specialist just to explain this to them and get their advice before sending the child straight back to school.
Yeah, okay. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
I also just wanted to add to what Kofi said, that we understand that it can be quite very sort of worrying for people who live with sort of vulnerable adults or people who might have been asked to shield in March. So I totally understand how you might feel very worried. And if you are really worried about this, it might be helpful to share these concerns with your school as well. So that your school are aware, you know, about your child's situation if they are living with particularly vulnerable people and stuff. So, because with the whole new normal, we say new normal because we are going to be sort of living with these changes for maybe the next few months or for the next year or so. We don't really know how long this will last, but there might be a possibility that, for example, in the future, we go back into lockdown or come out of it. It just really depends. We're just going to sort of take each sort of day as it comes. So in these kind of situations, if the school does know about a particular family or a particular sort of scenario, they might take that into consideration when they sort of decide sort of new ways of working within a school. Like, for example, you may have heard the concept of blended learning, which is that some children might initially start having sessions or lessons from home through the internet, through the computers, and some kids will come back to school first, and they're going to sort of mix the sort of learning like that. So if they know your family's situation, that might be something that they consider. But at the end of the day, it's up to each school. But I would really encourage parents or families who might have these concerns to share this with their school, so they're kept in the loop.
Can I say something, Sue, in regards to that? Because I did ask you when I saw you last time about the date from the government guidance about the fund. It's been ready now for people who are facing financial problem in regards to homeschooling their children or having extra financial support. For example, if they come to a decision where they have to teach their children remotely, there are some funds where it can support families with financial difficulties. I mean, if you have any website or any link, can you put it in the chat so people we can support people to apply for that if possible? And if you can say a few words about that, because you did mention it yes, the other day. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Yep. So yes, the government, so if you're going to government guidelines, they have mentioned that they are giving funds to schools to support with the learning. They're still in the process of deciding how much money each school is going to get. But the best people to advise would be your head teacher from the school, because they will have access to the funds. So I'm not exactly sure what the process is to go about getting the funding yourself, but the schools will be in the best position to advise. So I would highly recommend, if anyone is experiencing any financial difficulties or knows someone or know a family who might be, to encourage them to speak with their school and express that concerns. Because I think right now the government are still in the process of deciding how to allocate the fund. They just sort of recently sort of declared that they will be making some a funding pot available, but exactly how this will be sort of allocated and how this will be allocated to each school is still in the process. And then once the school have the funds, that it will be up to the schools to decide how they're going to best use this. But on that point as well, I'm not sure if people have been sort of reading the news, also checking the guidelines, but they are also making a fund available to support children who might have sort of missed out on learning during the lockdown period. So schools are now sort of partnering up with different tutoring services in their local area to see how best they could support children to make up for the missed learning time and support children who might have fell back on learning time. So if that is a concern that you have for your child or someone that you know, do sort of keep that in mind, that this is something that the government will be supporting schools to do in turn for their children.
Okay, thank you, Shreya, for that. Okay, Muna, would you like to add anything? I can see your hand up.
Yes, I wanted to add, like the schools, when they emailed us the risk assessment, it's very important to read the information in there. And so regarding the behavior, they did say if you have any concern to email the Sinco, and they provided the email address, so you can do that before the school starts even, so before tomorrow basically, too late for now. And then also like so many steps, and they saying how they are going to be supporting your children's well-being, because of course they know some of them hasn't been back to school or even socializing with other kids other than the siblings if they have any. So there's a lot of steps that the school put in, for example, like encouraging health and well-being and physical exercise throughout the curriculum. The school will continue practicing the mindfulness program, depends on every school, of course. And then also parents will be encouraged to talk to school staff if they have any concerns. It's very important as well. The drop-in in the morning time and pick-up time is very important that you are on time. It's not like before when you can be running 5 minutes or something like that. So for my own experience, when I took my kids back on the second week of June, for my eldest one who started 8:15, there was suddenly road work, and we were like 7 minutes late. and the school didn't let in. I mean, the head teacher had to come out to speak to me. He was like, sorry, Muna, really, we can't. And I really appreciated that. And it actually made my son really, you know, regret not being, you know, on time. And, you know, he actually went home and did some work. And then since then, we've never been late. You know, so it was only once. And it's very important. And don't take it personal if they say to you, sorry. 8:30 means 8:30. 8:45 means 8:45. Pickup time if it was 2:45 and you know the other one is 3 o'clock, that's exactly what needs to be done, and it's nothing personal, and you'll be helping the school as well, you know, to adhere to the, you know, the government guidelines. So we need to do our bit as well, and making sure our kids eat healthy food, and you know, not to be exposed too much to screen time, and sleep early, and you know, all this stuff, and the physical exercise where possible. When the weather's nice, just take them to the park and let them run. You know, and reading the risk assessment is very important, and helping your children, yourself, and the school. And like we said, step by step, and hopefully we'll be okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So yeah, just add to William's point there. Just said it's really important that we do keep reading, and we do keep, you know, listening to the news and hearing out for any new information, because as we said at the start, like what we've told you guys this evening is just based on what's like the most current, up-to-date guidelines. And you know how the government have been since this lockdown and how this virus all started. Like every day, every week, we're hearing new bits of information. They keep changing different things. And, you know, there's every chance that going forward that could remain the case. So it's really important to just keep listening out for new information as and if it comes around. Continue reading the guidelines, you know, read all the risk assessments and everything that your school has put out about your child returning to school, what they need to know, how like they may be checked for symptoms and everything. So yeah, do make sure that you do follow that advice and really read, and just be listening out for everything, and keep in touch with the news every day.
Thank you, كوفي. في أي زول يا جماعة عنده سؤال ولا عنده مداخلات ولا كده؟ أنا بس عايزة أقول حاجة بالعربي بالنسبة للنقطة اللي قالتها أستاذة منى، بإنه نحن مفروض نعمل اللي علينا برضو. يعني والله يا جماعة دي حاجة أنا برضو experience مع بنتي. وصلت متأخر عشان تبيكها أب، كان عندهم رجعنا المدرسة نحن الأسبوعين قبل الإجازة، وصلت 10 دقائق. يعني برضو زي سمعت كلام ما عجبني في الأول، لكن ما أخذته بيرسونال، لأنه كانت هم بيرسلوا ايميلات وبيرسلوا مسجز يا جماعه البيك اب في الزمن المعين، الدخول في الوقت المعين، اللي احنا لو عاينا للحاجه دي لسلامه اطفالنا. يعني قللت لنا نحن مشاكل كثيره في انه نحن كنا مقلقين. يعني بنتنا دي مثلا لما تمشي المدرسه حتكون كيف، حتعمل كيف، شايفين الديفيكولتيز بتاعتها اللي بقت تظهر في البيهيفير بتاعتها كده عشان اللوك داون، عشان كده وهي طفله، ونحن فاهمين الايج بتاعها وحاجات زي دي. فلما نشتغل مع المدارس في النهايه الحاجه دي لينا نحن ذاتنا، ما نحن بنمثل المجتمع ده. فانا اتمنى انه الناس او البيرنتس او كلنا مع بعض، عشان نحن يعني نكون عايشين في مجتمع متعافى وما عجبانا حاجات كثيره جدا جدا مثلا بتتقال لك الحكومه، بس زي بنفتكر كده زي امر، لكن لو عاينا ليها هي لمصلحتنا نحن كناس ممثلين للمجتمع ده. فلازم نتعاون ولازم نعمل الحاجات اللي علينا، ويعني لو غلطنا ونسالهم يا اخي نحن عملنا كده، نتكلم معاهم. يعني ما في حاجه، الناس ما يكون عندها الخوف بتاع انه لا حيعملوا حاجه لاطفالنا، حيعينوا لنا كمنظور. يعني الايشوز اللي بتدور في ريسنا مرات بيكون ما عندها يعني في الواقع حاجات ملموسه بالشيء اللي احنا بنفكر بيه، نتخلص منها. وتعلمنا كثير وحنتعلم لسه اكثر واكثر، ونتمنى انه يعني الظروف تساعدنا في انه نحن نساعد اطفالنا ديل ونساعد في بناء مجتمع متعافي يعني من كل وباءات ومن كل. شكرا لكم، ونتمنى انكم تتداخلوا وتقولوا اسئلتكم عشان الحاجات توضح لكم. يعني
ممكن انا يعني اسال؟
تفضل حبيبي.
شكرا. Thank you very much for the organizer and for the speakers. My name is Jamal. I'm mental health and well-being session worker. Besides that, I'm involving in the test and trace scheme with the National Health Service. my question is that this question, I realize that most of clients have been in touch, involved with them. They asking this question: what is going inside the classroom? How many students are the students will be the same as before Corona, or they are going to divide the class into 2 classes? And how they, this is the main concern the parents are asking right now. So I'm just waiting to hear the answer for this, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So well, it depends on the school, as you said. Every school will have a different protocol. But what's being said at the minute, from what we've heard, is that class sizes may be as little as 15, and also that there will be distancing between seatings. So there will be distance between tables and desks for each pupil. And to manage this as well, it will be, for some schools, it may be in a structure that one set of pupils go in 1 week, and then the other set of pupils will come in the next week, and those set of pupils that came in the previous week will learn from home. So it all depends on what policy the school puts in place, because, as you said, the government have basically given the schools the power to decide how they're going to manage this. But from what we've heard, like from what's been going around, class sizes may be as little as 15. There will be distancing between desks, and there will be a system where by 1 week, a certain number of pupils go in, and then the next week, those pupils will learn from home, and the other set of pupils will attend in the classroom.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just add also, like a lot of schools, they never really closed their doors throughout the pandemics, and they were supporting the parents who's working. So they haven't reported any cases to my knowledge. And so they are really safe to send your schools to. That's how I feel.
بس لو سمحتوا لي أنا برضو طبعا ممكن أضيف من تجربتي مع أولادي لما رجعوا المدارس. الفصل كان بيكون مقسوم على 2 مجموعتين، 2 جروب 15 أصلا الفصل فيه 30، فكانوا مقسمينه على 2 جروب، كل جروب فيه 15 child، ويستخدموا كل الهول الموجودة بي هول.
I know I'm gonna give it to you. Okay, I give you the PlayStation. You didn't pray العصر المغرب السوم.
Okay, thank you. Yes, go ahead, Rasha.
Hello. I mute Rasha معلش بالصدفة أنا حاولت تميوت الزر الثاني. Sorry. Go ahead Rasha معلش. Sorry.
بس حبيت اللي هو زي ما قلت أوضح الأستاذ عمال. طبعا هي حسب المدرسة زي ما قال كوفي، بتختلف من مدرسة لمدرسة وإمكانيات كل مدرسة، لكن أنا بس كمثال لمدرستنا إنه كانوا بيقسموا الكلاس لتو جروبس، كل جروب فيها هو الكلاس 15 student، كل جروب فيه 15 I mean 30 student، فقسموها على 2 بقى 15. وكانوا بيستخدموا كل السبيس الافيلبل في المدرسه، البي اي الهول حتى الفود هول، بيطبقوا الكراسي تحت هنا، الترابيزه تحت هنا بيستخدموها كمساحات اضافيه، والميوزك هول كلها بيستخدموها عشان يقسموا هنا لجروب صغيره. وطبعا ده بالاضافه للسوشيال ديستانس اتليست تخيلي 2 متر ولا 1.5 متر كده بين كل فصل، بين كل طالب والثاني. بس زي ما قالت منى يا جماعه، كل البيرنت المفروض يقروا الريسك اسسمنت في التفاصيل دي كلها. اي سكول عملت الريسك اسسمنت زي منشن everything في الريسك اسسمنت، او ماني تشايلد في الكلاس وكل التفاصيل دي. يعني اتمنى اكون وضحت حاجه. شكرا لكم.
طبعا ده انا برضو مع استاذه منى ورشا we've been experiencing في الهنايه. المهم وinvolving، لانه طبعا عارفين ان احنا ده شغلنا في الكوميونتي، شغلنا في المدرسه. حتى نحن هسه المدرسه بتاعتنا حنرجع ان شاء الله، لكن برضه بديفرنت هنا، يعني حنعملها 2 شيفت يجي الصباح يدرسوا كم، حتى قلنا لنا ساعات الدراسه، لانه هو يوم واحد احنا مدرستنا في ويكند يوم سبت. الفتره بتاعت البرايمري سكول دي حيكونوا فتره صباحيه، بعد ذاك حناخد بريك لمده ساعه. عندنا بروبر كلينرز هيجوا عشان ينظفوا ويمسحوا ويعملوا الحاجات كلها احنا عندنا اجريمنت بينه وبين المدرسه المؤجرين منها، لازم تكون ان بليس في الريسك اسسمنت بتاعنا خديناه. ويجوا ناس السكندري اللي هو عندنا من يير 7 لحد 11 نواصل معاهم. حتى اللي ما بيقدروا يجوا يعني زي ما ذكروا هم قبالك كل الناس الانفولف في قصه الجوين باك تو سكول، انه كل مدرسه الجفرمنت خدوا النورمال جايد لاينز وخلوا المدارس هم how they will implement them according to الاسر بتاعتهم، لانه اي مدرسه بتعرف الفاميليز اللي بيجوها والايشوز بتاعتهم شنو، فبس الناس تشتغل مع المدارس وتشوف. هنا نحن من السبلمنتري سكول في اسر ما حيقدروا يجيبوا اطفالهم كلهم، جزء منهم حيجوا فيزيكلي وجزء منهم ممكن ندرسهم ريموتلي، لانه كنا فتره اللوك داون بندرس ريموتلي يعني. فالناس بتتعاون في الظروف دي وعشان الاطفال ما تميس اوت وعشان تو اتشيف الجريدز بتاعهم وكده. شكرا جزيلا ونواصل في النقاش. اللي عنده مداخلات ثانيه تفضلوا. طيب يا جماعة، في أي هنا لسه عندنا زمن اللي عنده أي استفسارات ولا أي مداخلات or maybe you want to wrap up conclusion of things said in Arabic and in English, or if you want to have to conclude the discussion, maybe someone might have questions. Just come and ask.
Ikram, there's a message from someone called Miska. Do you want to read it on chat?
Right, let me just go back.
Or shall I?
Yeah, you can, please, because you've seen it.
Okay, so it says, I'm Miska. I'm in Edinburgh. I have started 3rd year in high school. I started school in August. We hand sanitize before and after each lesson. We wear masks in hallways and try to keep our distance from other people. The school made different starting times for the different year groups. My school does different things to keep us safe. Just wanted to tell people not to be scared and go back to school and follow the rules. Hope everyone has a great, safe and non-anxious back to school day. So thank you very much for that. This is for mainly the parents, I think, who never send their kids so far. So it's going to be the first time for them this week. And I do wish them all the best. And if they have any concerns or if I can help in any way, Ikram, please pass them out my details. And thank you very much for the great opportunity and for all your efforts.
Thank you very much, Muna. Now I'm going to put my number down if anyone wants to so to link you with the team to give you the support you need, because they do work with children as well as adults and parents. Correct me if I'm wrong, Sio or Kofi. And if maybe you did mention the service you give to parents, and I'm sure by you attending this community gathering over this important subject for resident or for family of UK in I mean RBKC in particular, but United Kingdom overall, that you might be able to say more services they can be used, or just to give them reassurance about how they can overcome some of the issues or the uncertain about sending their children back. Okay, would you like to CEO, are you there or you left already?
Sorry, I think my internet cut out. Ikram, did you say my name?
Yeah. I was going to say, if you can give more, I was telling everyone that there are support and there are some services available in each area that we just have to keep reading and updating our information about what's the accurate website, not just listening to the news and all this random news we hear, and it increase our worries more than it give us the support we need in order to have a new normal life, as you call it. Okay. CEO or Kofi? Or anyone else wants to say anything or to ask question? So
اوكي إكرام لو سمحتي بس في سؤال لكوفي or CEO any of them regarding what is spread in social media recently about the school that has a right to test the child if they found him positive to coronavirus, can isolate them. So many parents, they are very stressed about this and has big fear. Is this true or?
CEO or Kofi, would you like to answer that?
Yeah, I think Simpu's connection might be weak. Yeah, just to answer that, so I'd be very careful about what you follow on social media. Our advice would be that if you're looking at advice on the coronavirus and go back to school, to strictly follow either news that you see on television, on BBC, or on the government websites, or on the NHS. Those are the three most reliable sources of information. Social media can be filled with very different views, and some of it's not always true. So it's also about being careful about what you read. And like we said, those three sources, the government website, the NHS website, and the news channels are the best sources of information for this.
Yes.
Okay. Kofi, I think we all experiencing trouble with the internet. Hello?
Hello?
Can I just add as well to Kofi's point, not to spread the news. I mean, if it comes to you, you receive it from someone, you know, check the information, check it's like it's not true, and then don't spread it, because, you know, spreading it makes more people anxious and more people worried, and, you know, so try to spread good news, not the bad news and the wrong news.
Thank you, Mina. Yes, that's very good advice. Okay. Did that answer your question, Rasha, or anybody who have that kind of concept about the social media and all the false news we hear?
The problem when you go to the legislation regarding in the government website regarding this issue, it doesn't make you feel much better actually, because they say some type of this issue. I don't have the exact word, but I think the authorities has the right to reduce the risk if somebody tested positive. So authorities, it doesn't matter who this authorities, could be a school or somewhere, because your child is going to be tested in a school. So if the authorities has a right to take your whoever has this disease and isolate them. They didn't mention if it is school or not. That's why people, they took this part and spread in social media as school maybe has the right, or teacher has the right to test your child. If it's got positive, they're going to take to isolate them without parent permission. So even I saw in the news some conversation like that, and then not 100% is this right or not. They didn't give you the right answer. That's why I asked you.
Okay, I mean,
I think the risk assessment from the schools does answer that question.
Yes.
And they do say if the parents or the class, because they will be in smaller groups and bubbles, like they don't mix with other classes. If there's any symptoms, then they will send your child home and you'll be isolated for 7 days, 7 to 14 days, and also the household. So listen and read the risk assessment, and that's the one we should be going by. And also, they don't have the resources to do, to isolate every child, and it's not logical.
Yeah, it's not logical. Yeah, you are right.
No, it's not logical.
Not really. I mean, from my experience as well, and I'm sure I heard it a lot from a lot of parents we've been involved with, that is school, and in particular in some of the local primary school, they had summer courses. And the way they deal with checking the children, making sure they come on time, they leave on time, how they enter the school. We are not even allowed to go in the school with them. We will have the staff standing outside, checking their temperature, making sure that they spray their hands, and encouraging them, like greeting them in a very good way. And I remember the first day I dropped my daughter, the first week, I didn't take her, that took her. But when when it was my turn to take her, the way they were welcoming, I know the staff in the school, and some of the parents, when they turn up, they're like, oh, all in their scooter, their bike, and they were happy. So it's not really, we need to experience it to see for ourselves. These people are working on our favor. As long as we speak to them and we raise our concern to them, it won't be any problem. And making sure to update your details in the school system. If anything forbidden happen, they can get hold of you. Thank you.
Ikram, I have a suggestion for you. If you can rap in Arabic, would be great. The outcome of this session in Arabic.
Okay.
Thanks the two speakers, and let's the rest of the committee of our members here.
Okay.
Arabic. What as the outcome of this session in Arabic would be great, I think.
Okay. Right. CEO and Kofi, I'm gonna say to conclude what we've been talking about in Arabic. But before I do that, I would like to thank you for your time, for being here on Sunday, for accepting the invitation in a very short notice when we ask you to come and brief before they start going back to school. We very much appreciate what you do for us as a community, and we would love to see you in our gathering more often to give that kind of reassurance to our people, and to understand our issues and our concerns. And we don't mind to teach you Arabic as well, because I'm sure you are interested. And sometimes I start talking to you in Arabic or communicating in Arabic, and I know you know some words, or you can tell. And I know you like our food, you like our thing, and we do appreciate that you're involving with us. You wanted to support us and to help us. Thank you very much. And I'm going to switch now to Arabic just to give all.
Yeah, thank you, Ikram. First of all, thanks for that. We'll definitely take up the offer to learn Arabic, and yeah, your food is great. Just before you conclude, we just wanted to share our contact details for the service, just in case anyone wants to get in touch after this presentation as well, going forward.
Right.
If I can just find it somewhere.
Yeah, if you can just put it in the chat, and
yeah, we'll drop it in the chat then. That's fine.
Okay, thank you. طيب، بالنسبة لحضورنا الكريم، نشكركم شكر جزيل على حضوركم. ويعني احنا معلش متأسفين انه عملناه كده، بس حاجة سريعة علنا عنها، لكن لانه حاجة مهمة. والفترة اللي فاتت دي كلها يعني كانت المعلومات.
إكرام صوتك بيقطع.
المنطقه، ولا المهم المعلومات المتضاربه اللي عامله للناس مشاكل نفسيه دي، الناس يكون شويه في طمانينه وسكينه، ويقدروا نتعايش مع الظروف الجايه اللي قدام، اللي احنا ما عارفين ذات شنو بيسموها لينا الروتين الجديد المفروض نتعود عليه، ويتعودنا انا متاكده لحاجات كثيره. المهم كلامهم كلهم هو بيصب في انه ما تسمعوا للاشاعات، ما تسمعوا للحاجات، دائما تشيك الويب سايت بتاع NHS، لانه هم الحته اللي بتسعى مع الحكومه الاعلان عن الحاجات والمعلومات تحت السيفتي، تحت الامان، وتحت الصحه بالنسبه للاسر. فخدتنا لكم طبعا في الشات الويب سايت، وخدت انا رقمي، فاي زول عايز اي معلومه يتفضلوا يتواصلوا معنا. ولو عندكم اي حاجه برضو عايزيننا نحن يعني نرتب لها تختص مثلا بالحاجات الاسريه ولا كده عبر الموقع بتاعنا ده، نتمنى انكم برضو تتواصلوا حتى لو ما عندكم لسه فكره، لكن ترى على بالكم فكره او مجموعات انتم دايرين مثلا نحن نديكم المنصه تتناقشوا في حاجات، ونجيب مثلا ندبر لكم ناس يكون ده مجالهم في انه يتناقشوا في حاجات بتهمنا نحن عايشين في مجتمعات زي دي. نتمنى انكم يعني ما يكون في حاجز بيننا وبينكم، ونحن دائما يعني المعلومات عندنا حتكون بنسعى لانه نلم المعلومات ونجيبها من الجهات الصحيحه عشان انتم تستفيدوا، وعشان كلنا مع بعض نعيش في مجتمعات متعافيه. شكرا لكم. لسه والله كويس، يعني ماشي في الزمن كويس، دي حاجه برضو كويسه تعلمنا نحن يعني انه نكون
اكرام.
يا استاذ محمد تفضل.
لا ما مشكله، انا داري اشوف لو في زول عنده تعقيب بالعربي او عنده تجربه داري يقول لنا.
طيب تفضل.
او عنده نصايح للناس اللي ماشيين بكره المدارس.
ايوه
الناس لانه شغالين اوريدي، انا بعرف وميمه لو قاعده برضه كانت شغاله في المجال الطبي، يعني يدونا رايهم بالعربي، يعني بكره الناس ماشيين وما في زول عنده سابق تجربه مساله جديده يعني. تفتكروا رايكم شنو؟ هل الناس حتنجح السودانيين الكوميونتي السودانيه؟ هل حنكون نقدر نفيد مع الروز الجديده ولا حنعاني؟ وين معاناتنا حتكون وكيف نتصرف؟ يعني لو في زول عنده اجابه للسؤال ده الباب مفتوح، يعني ممكن ناخذ ثاني 10 دقائق نسمع بالعربي من الناس.
بعدين يعني حتى ممكن تحكوا لنا تجاربكم في بيوتكم، لانه انا متاكده في ناس في اسر يعني سمحوا لهم كان في فتره حتى اللوك داون ده، كانه لو هم عندهم كانوا رجعوا الشغل، لو في البيت، لو بالفيزيكلي مثلا كم مره في الاسبوع ولا كده، بيكونوا عندهم شويه اكسبيرينس اوفر اول هنا يعني حوالين التجربه بتاعت اللوك داون، وهسه الناس بدات ترجع، والاخبار اللي بدات يعني يحصل لها ريليسينج، والتجهيزات حتى للسكند ويف المهم الورز والقلق الحاصل للناس ده. فاي زول لو عنده اي معلومه داير يشارك بها لنشر الطمانينه والخبره للناس يتفضل.
طيب اللمين وانا داير ابين يدهم من قبل ولا دايرين فرص؟
لا ما تكلموا سأل
اللي هو
سؤال
الحال انا اتاكد منه عشان انا عشان في
خلاص سحبوها
سحبتها اليوم هاي نزلتها.
اوكي طيب في زول تاني من اعضائنا اعضاء الجاليه السودانيه عايز يقول حاجه ولا يقترح اي حاجه للفتره الجايه نجهز ولا نعمل اي شيء نحن يعني ما تعرضنا له في الفتره اللي فاتت؟ عندنا طبعا شويه كم محاضرات حنعملها، بس بيكون كويس انتوا لو قمتوا يعني اديتونا فكره انه ده محتاجين لشنو، انه نحن مثلا نخطوا حته بتاعت نقاش بتاعت وعي وكده. يعني احنا ما دايرين الترتيب كله يكون من جانبنا، لانه هو نفس الايشوز اللي بيمر بها احنا بيمر بها كل الاسر، لكن برضه تكون كويس لو الناس بتتكلم عن نوع المشاكل اللي بيواجهوها.
بالضبط. انا بس لما اشتري بتلاقي الفرشه دي كم بتنفشين احسن.
1 2 3 4 5 اهلا استاذه منى، تفضلي عايزه تقولي لنا اي حاجه؟
No, thank you. Just good luck to everyone. وحلو ان الانسان يكون طبعا دائما يفكر بايجابيه ويتوكل على الله ويجهز نفسه معنويا ونفسيا وجسديا. ويعني الاتكال على الله حاجه مهمه تقريبا. وبعدين لما انت تعملي كده اطفالك كمان ان شاء الله they gonna follow، لان نحن ما عندنا علم الغيب، فنعمل اللي علينا في الموجود.
أكيد.
وطبعا القراءة، نحن أمة اقرأ، فلازم نقرأ. أوكي، شكرا.
شكرا لك يا منى. شكرا
Thank
عليك،
you. I really
هذه معانا
appreciate it.
عربي
Yeah.
وانجليزي وكله
حبيبتي
يعني
شكرا. الله
وانا
يخليك.
متاكده لو لجأنا لك في اي حاجه من الكوميونتي بتاعتنا يعني
أي وقت
ما
أي
حتقصر
وقت
ان
أي
شاء
وقت.
الله.
أيوه شكرا حبيبتي.
الله يخليك. شكرا لك. شكرا يا رشا. بالمناسبه يعني دائما مديانا دعم وسبورت معي في المدرسه في المنطقه بالمعلومات، ودائما بتحفزي البيرنتس بالحاجات الايجابيه وبتجربتك الخاصه مع اسرتك وبتشارك معانا. كتر خيرك، وان شاء الله يعني نتمنى نسمع الحاجات دي كلها من كل باقي الاسر والبيرنتس، يعني نشجعهم انهم يتكلموا ويحكوا، لانه الكلام هو ذاته في حد ذاته ثربي لينا او بيخلينا نتنفس ونطلع الضيق الجوانا والاسترجل الحاصل ده، ودي سنه الحياه طبعا زي ما كلنا عارفين. طيب خلاص الوقت خلص، يعني ممكن نقول مع السلامه وشكرا لكم، شكرا لحضوركم. وما تنسوا اللي بيتذكر لي حاجه ولا اي شيء ممكن يتواصل معنا، يعني ما ضروري هسه لازم احنا نسلط الضوء عليكم انكم تتكلموا هسه يعني، ففي الخاص في هنا، لكن بيكون كويس لو الناس حاولت تو هايلايت او تو ادريس بعض الايشوز اللي بيمر بها في مجتمعاتنا يعني هنا في المهجر، عشان الناس تحاول تعيش في جو متعافي يعني. كتر ألف خيركم وشكرا لكم لزمنكم ولقعدتكم ساعتين، يعني دي حاجة ما سهلة وصندي وكده، لكن ممكن تكون لكم شوية انرجي لبكرة تستعدوا وتكونوا طلعتوا بحاجة من السيشن ده. ألف شكر. ويا محمد خلاص كتر خيرك وشكرا لكم.
شكرا.
مع السلامة.
مع السلامة.
السلام عليكم.
عليكم السلام.
السلام ورحمة. كيف يا استاذة؟ تمام؟ معك
يخليك.
الأمين الياس.
اهلا وسهلا بك.
كيف الصحة والأحوال؟ شرف كويسين؟
الحمد لله.
معك. لا ان شاء الله انا سجلت رقمك، ان شاء الله حتواصل معاك بخصوص بعض المواضيع بتخص الجالية، بخصوص ان شاء الله. يعني انا كنت قبل كده كتبت برضه لمحمد يعني انه يعني احب اشارك بعض المواضيع وكده، لكن ما لقيت من
اهلا بك. اهلا بك طبعا.
فالمهم ان شاء الله حتواصل معاك ان شاء الله ونتكلم ندردش شويه كده.
ان شاء الله ان شاء الله ما في عويل.
باذن الله تعالى.
ربنا يعيننا كلنا على عمل الخير ان شاء الله يا رب.
ان شاء الله باذن الله تعالى. ان شاء الله دائما تحت امركم والله.
الله يخليك. الله يخليك.
الله يحفظك. الله
طيب السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام ورحمه الله. السلام عليكم. السلام عليكم. السلام.
يا محمد خلاص تنهي تقفل الروم.
وفيه محشي لذيذ. ما اعرف شنو.